Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, at the new episode from the FTP podcast. And today we have another episode of the Black Box. And of course, the Black Box. Here we're gonna tell you the truth. Here we're gonna expose every single thing they don't want you to know about. And with they, we of course mean certain people that have certain things about, of power and all that stuff. We're not gonna talk about that right now, but we're gonna expose the truth. And today we have someone amazing, someone that I really look up to, and someone that changed my whole life. The last 4 years, we worked side by side and we created some amazing stuff, crazy things. And I know him as the best creator out there. Not only the best creator, by the way. I also have to say that you're one of the most inspiring people I know. Why? Because the person I'm going to introduce is someone that always faced certain depression back in the days. When he was really young, he faced depression. And I don't know how it is to face a depression because I can say that I never experienced before. But I saw people around me that also had to face depression, but could not win from it, if I can say it like that. But the person I'm about to introduce is someone that actually won from it and now inspires a lot of other people. He leads an organization of over 1,000 people right now, not only on the depression part, but on every single part that FTP is teaching about. And I can say one of his most favorite topics to talk about is mindset. Can we say that?
Yeah, 100%.
Yes, mindset, right? And that's also the thing that he really wants to inspire people with because, and yeah, he's traveling the world. And yeah, he's doing this business full time for years and years. And yeah, he helped his mom financially. And yeah, he made some X amount of burgers, let's say that, let's say it like that, with online business. But besides that, I know him as the person that will always put other people above himself. For years and years, you're already doing it. And today, we're going to talk about a certain topic that you also had to learn, that you also had to face, because you had to win from your depression back in the days when you were younger. And I know for a fact that the topic we're going to talk about, the topic we're going to go over, is a topic that will literally change so many lives when they start implementing the value you're about to give them. So, I'm of course talking about Mr. Luc Brands.
Let's go.
Brother, I'm so excited for your topic because can you explain a little bit where you're going to talk about?
Yeah, so obviously, we were in Dubai obviously last week, right? And I think a lot of people, because now you talked a lot about depression. In the end of the day, success is something that you are, not something that you have. Mm-hmm. And in this whole journey in life, I would say, it's always you versus yourself, right? It's always you versus yourself. And what I learned from myself is that, I was always looking sometimes at external things. I looked at external solutions, but I didn't understand that all the solutions I ever wanted in life were always inside of me. Mm-hmm. But I was never really able to understand why I was in certain situations in my life and why I had certain circumstances, right? So to give an example, we were in Dubai. Yeah, it was an amazing experience, obviously, right?
Yes.
We talked to some amazing people. And I don't know about you, but sometimes when we're like walking on the sidewalk and I see people driving by in like Lamborghinis, Rolls Royce, you look at them and you're like, I'm also a human being. You are also a human being. Why do you live a different life, right? And obviously, a lot of people want to change their results, their outcome. Some people want to change their feelings. Some people want to change their thoughts. But what comes before all of that is, in the end of the day, how you are programmed as a human being. And we do these podcasts because we are programmed to lose, but we are born to win. Mm-hmm. And my goal is to really program people to win because I had to program myself. But for that, you obviously need a tool, which is self-talk. Self-talk is a tool you can use to reprogram yourself because however you are programmed is exactly what's going to show up in the world. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an analogy so you can understand what do I mean with it. Are you ready for it?
I'm really ready for it, man. Let's go.
So did you ever play games when you were younger?
What kind of games?
Okay, yeah, can be... so can be Call of Duty, FIFA, that kind of stuff.
No, I never played PlayStation before. Like really played. But maybe once, of course I did it once.
So you were the Xbox guy?
No, I was a football player.
Oh, okay.
I was focused on football.
Okay. I was going to say maybe the Wii Sport. Okay. So Okay, so once again, like, when you look at other human beings, you're like, okay, we're both human beings, but you have a different life. How is that possible? But I had this example. So I remember I was bringing my PlayStation to my cousin's house. I think it was like in 2020 or something, right? So back then it was COVID. I was actually depressed. And it was actually funny because later when I also read the book about self-talk, I started thinking about the same situation because they explained the same way. So we both had a PlayStation, I think it was like a PlayStation 4 back then, right? So it's both the same computer and we both had the same exact screen that we were using as well, right? But the weird part is that we had both the same screen, both the same computer, the same console, but on his screen you were able to see Fortnite and on my screen you were able to see FIFA, right? And as long as I was in this business, one day someone told me and said like, hey, if you look at a computer, it's very similar to how a human being is, right? And I was like, okay, just explain it to me more, right? When my mentor told me this.
Yes.
So it was like, okay, there is obviously 3 different things when we have a computer, okay? So we have the screen, right? Where we can see everything on. We have the keyboard and we have obviously the card, the disk, I would say, right? So like the hardware, however you want to drive it, right? However you want to tell it. So if you take a look at a human being is the exact same, right? When we go back to the computer, whatever you see on the screen, right, of a computer is what's being programmed inside the disk. So the reason on my screen you were seeing, for example, FIFA and on his screen you were seeing Fortnite is because that's what's programmed into it, right? With the keys, you can change it if you want to, but in the end of the day, you can never see something on the screen if it's not programmed into the disk, right? And if you take a look at a human being is almost the same. So the screen of the computer is your outer world, your outer reality, right? And let's be honest, how many times, bro, did you have people in your organization that came on you for like, for example, onboarding 2 where you do goal setting and said, hey, I want to change my outer reality, like my outer circumstances?
A lot of people.
I think mostly everyone wants to change it, right? But a lot of people think that, just only working hard or listening to some books, all that kind of stuff is just going to change their outer reality. But it's mainly that programming inside, because if their disk is not programmed differently, it cannot show up differently on their screen. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So your disk is what we call your subconscious mind, right?
Okay.
And probably in the future, we will do a whole topic on that as well. So I will keep that very horizontal, right? So let's say we are born, right? When we get born between the age of 0 to 7, our subconscious mind is created. And I always say like the subconscious mind, you have to see it as a little ball, right? So a little kid has just this ball, which is his subconscious mind, and everything that is being put in there will stay in there for the rest of its life, unless it's being changed, which we're going to talk about today, right? But that creates this program. So for example, it creates your beliefs, it creates however you view the world, so your perspective and how you see everything, right? And you in life, your screen, what will show up on there is only what you believe in. So only whatever is stored into the subconscious mind is what will show up in your reality. So bro, when we were in Dubai, and you see these guys like IT nerds driving by in supercars, they're just programmed differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they're better now. So for example, have you ever had this, that you had someone in your class and they were like Benjamin? You know what I mean? And Benjamin was not the smartest guy, or Laura was not the smartest girl. But because they got raised in a very rich household, they learned the way of how to act, how to think, and how to feel when it comes down to money. Have you ever had this?
Yeah.
also Laura and the Benjamin?
Not Laura, but some sort of a Benjamin.
Okay.
They always played hockey as well. Like, I don't
always
know
hockey.
why.
Always hockey, typical. So if I took a look at these people, I was like, hey, how is that possible? You know what I mean? But when you take a look at the computer, like the analogy of it, it makes so much sense, because you can only see on the screen what's being, obviously programmed in the disk. So between the age of 0 to 7, if you didn't get born successfully, or for example, we also, it's maybe a deep topic, but, we get traumas from our parents, grandpa, etc. So for example, I also know that my grandma did not solve her depression. So I had to do it. You know what I mean? I was programmed still to probably fall into depression or like go into that part.
Is that what's called generational trauma?
Yeah, generational trauma is a perfect example, right? Which we will definitely talk about more in the future, which is a very important topic. So, but anyway, so I also didn't get raised in a very rich house or whatever. So if you want to change that outcome, you have to go always to the programming, right? So how does a hacker, for example, program right, the disc differently or whatever is by the keys he's using. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And for a human being, the keys is their five senses,
Okay.
right? So, for example, if if you were young, you didn't understand anything of what your parents said, but you listened to them, so you were hearing what they were saying, you saw what they were saying, right? Obviously, you felt it in an energetical perspective. Yeah, we can't go into that too deep. But you were able to mainly see it and hear it. That's mostly the most important things about the five senses, right?
Yes.
Because everything your eyes see, in the word eyes, it says yes, right? So everything you see is an automatic yes. And therefore, your programming is so important to be changed because your programming changes your beliefs. And we both know you can never achieve something you don't believe in. And the screen, that's also a rule, by the way, the screen will never display what you don't believe in. It only displays what you believe in, right? But like really believe in. So that will become your own reality. But the beliefs create an attitude. The attitude creates a feeling. And the feeling creates an action. The action creates the results. So to change the results, it's always to change your what? Your programming, right? And that takes probably time, right? But to give a perfect example, we're going to Dubai. It's a complete different environment. So our five senses got triggered way much different, right?
Facts.
And you said, hey, my goal this week is to create an X amount of cheeseburgers.
True.
So because of your five senses, right, you start getting programmed differently. You saw, oh, there's people making 6 figures, 7 figures. You say, I want to make this amount of money, which you never made in a week, right? You said
Never.
before. And now what does that change? It changed your belief. Your belief changed your attitude. Your attitude changed your feeling. You were also, like we talked about it, you were like, I feel differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
therefore, you act differently and therefore your results are different, right?
Facts.
But yeah, the question is, how do you change your programming? Because the programming changes most time by two things, right? So it's repetition and it's always an emotional impact.
Yes.
Right? So if you want to change, for example, the way you see yourself, right? You have to change that by repetition, talking to yourself how you want to see yourself. If you want to change your financial situation, you have to, by repetition, talk to yourself that you are successful, that you have certain success, right? Which comes down automatically to self-talk, okay? But a lot of people, they don't find this tool that they can use, which is really self-talk. And I don't know how you have this with yourself, but you know that one voice that you have inside of yourself is like sabotaging yourself or like trying to hold you back.
Yeah.
Most people talk with that guy, let's say it like this. But the nice thing is we can have our own conversation. And most of the time you have just a conversation with yourself every single day, not with someone else. It's all the time with you. Because every decision you make, before you make the decision, there's a little inner dialogue going on, little inner conversation, but we're not aware of it most of the time. You know what I mean? So once again, to change your whole programming, to change your beliefs about money, to change your beliefs about yourself, to change your beliefs about you as a leader. Like you can, for example, never attract big amounts of money if you don't believe you're worthy of it. So if people don't believe the word, how can they change it? Because they tell themselves, I'm not worthy. I can't do this. It's not possible. You know what I mean? And for me, Niels helped me with this, honestly, a lot. And then after when I read the book, everything changed. But he said, like, really self-talk is a weapon you can use.
Yes.
Because it's so funny. Someone told me this. He said two things. He said, number one, thinking bigger doesn't cost you anything. And he also said, number two, talking to yourself also doesn't cost you anything. So think about it. You can just say whatever you want to yourself, but most people never learned how to do it. Does that make sense?
It's really interesting that you say it because it makes me remind of one sentence I've once heard. It takes the same breath to say I can as it costs you when you say I can't. It takes the same breath. So why would you indeed deny yourself that you can actually achieve something? Why not?
Interesting, right? Because
it's really interesting.
I think most people also, like, whenever we say that to people, they still don't believe it. Why? Is because self-talk, or for example, say something differently towards yourself with a different breath, it doesn't give change instantly. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So people think, okay, I talk differently to myself and it changed everything, which it doesn't. Because you're right now 25 years old.
Yes.
Let's say you start this business today. Then that means you have been programmed for 25 years into probably a person you don't want to become. So if you want to change, that means you have to reprogram. Like some people think they can reprogram in 3 months what has been programming them for 20 years.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Now, the nice part is, though, with self-talk, is it takes 21 days to build a habit and 90 days to build a lifestyle. But it also takes just 90 days to change your beliefs. So when it comes down to depression, for example, I was always telling myself, I am depressed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And what happens? Okay, that's my programming. What does that create? My belief. What does that create? My attitude and my feelings. So I always told people, I was like, yeah, people said like depression not real. I was like, yeah, but I feel that I'm depressed. So I tried to change my feelings. Then I said, I'm thinking I'm depressed. So I tried to change my thoughts, but that didn't change it. It just only changed it when I changed the programming. Does that make sense? And a lot of people don't know like how to change it. So my goal is really to give them the tool so they can use self-talk and really change it, right? But before I'm going to do that, I'm going to give an example, right? So people also know how important it is. So by the age, this is by the way from studies, right? By the age of 18, right? So when you're 18 years old, you already heard in your life on an average more than 140,000 times that you can't do something. So let me ask you a question here, okay? So let's say you have a child, right?
Yeah.
And he comes running in like through the podcast here,
Yeah.
right? And he's going to like stand on the table and he start like, I don't know, doing some kind of TikTok dance or something. What would you tell him?
Back in the days, I would say go off.
Yeah.
But I know that's not the right thing to do. But normally, normal people would say, get off the table now.
Yeah.
Get out of the room.
You can't do this,
Yeah.
right? So when for example, let's say the child, I don't know, just like you go out of the room and the child is like, putting something in his mouth that he shouldn't put in his mouth, you would tell him, hey, don't do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or you can't do that.
Yeah.
So our brain doesn't know the difference obviously between reality and just a thought. So whenever it's being told in your mind, it perceives it as reality. That's why people say, I am not rich or I am broke, because that's the story they're telling themselves. That's the self-talk that they have because they see that in the reality. So when the kid hears all the time, you can't do it, it doesn't hear you can't put it in your mouth, it's just you can't do it. That's what it's hearing. So that keeps coming over and over and over again. But therefore, you can change that, right? But to change that, first important is obviously, as people, and you said this amazing, your podcast obviously about adapting information, is they need to grow their awareness. Right? They really need to grow their awareness, right? Because there's actually 5 levels of self-talk. Okay, I'm gonna take my phone because I wrote them all down to like exactly set them good. So the first level is what we call negative acceptance. And you can tell me if you also had the same, right? So negative acceptance is where you say, I can't do this, I'm not good enough. So you use the word I am or I have no money, but in a bad way.
Yeah.
Does it make sense? Have you ever experienced this?
Yeah, bro, for sure.
And also probably people in your team that come to you all the time with coachings.
Yes.
So what's interesting is, let's say you're in the coaching. There's a lot of time that people say, but yeah, I'm just stuck. They say I am stuck. Or they say I can't go to the next level. Or they say I am bad at prospecting.
Yeah.
So whatever they're saying, it's not serving them and is literally the lowest level, which is the level that works against them all the time. Because in the end of the day, what you tell yourself most of the time is what's going to become your reality.
Yes.
So what's being programmed in the disk is what's going to show up on the screen. So a lot of times, and this is really what like changed everything for me, when Neil said like, hey, for example, with my depression, he said, what if you're not like depressed? You just tell yourself that you're depressed. I was like, oh, damn. Let me just change how I'm talking to myself. So every single time, and this is an important level, by the way, is you need to become aware of this, obviously, that you're having this. So you also need to write down all the things that you are talking about badly towards yourself, right? In a negative way. Because we all know that if you talk in things with like fear or doubt, it's more about, it's not always about what you say, it's about also the energy you have behind it, obviously, right?
Facts.
Because you can like come to a mentor and obviously you have to address like, hey, I experienced this and I have these thoughts. But if you like come and you're like completely like crying your eyes out, you're like, I can't be a director, then obviously you're really going to believe into that. Does that make sense?
And this really makes me remind again of how important your environment is. Because a lot of times people surround themselves in a certain environment where they accept this level of self-talk.
Yeah.
So for example, a lot of times you're just in an environment where every single body is on the first level of the self-talk, where they indeed tell themselves and tell others, no, I can't, no, I have not, no, I am not able to, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
So Henry Ford always said, like, either you say you can or you cannot, you will always be right.
Yes.
So when you surround yourself in a certain environment, which I started to do finally in this business, when I started to surround myself with people where it was not allowed, guess what? I was much more aware of the words I told every single one and myself. So when I said sometimes I don't have or no, I cannot, then for example, someone that was close in my environment that also wants to achieve big things, I always do it like this: ticked me on the fingers, like bam, slap me on slap me on my fingers, and said like, "Hey, no, you can.
Yeah,
You don't have it yet, but you can." So your environment, I think. Do you think your environment is a big game changer as well in raising your awareness about how you talk to yourself?
Yeah,
What do you
100%.
think?
Because in the end of the day, your environment is created by, like how we say our environment is our reality, right? Which is, and we say reality is obviously created out of our five senses, right? Well, that's what most people say. Obviously, it's also your sixth sense, but we will go into that a different way. So obviously, like you said, you hear people around you say, I will be able to do it, right? Or for example, when we were in Dubai and we had like an expensive bill, right? You were saying like, hey, abundance. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why the quote, because a lot of people listen to the quote from like Henry Ford, for example, like very horizontal, but if you go vertically into it, it's the one word is talk, right? Or say. So whatever if you say you can, or if you say you can, you're both right in both cases. The power of life and death is in the tongue. You know what I mean? Because the thing is, whatever you're saying, whatever you're talking about, obviously it's vibration, it's energy, right? So when you say a word, let's say I say a lot of negative stuff, right? And so what happens is I obviously send out vibrations through my mouth. But energy is neither created or destroyed, it's only transformed, right? So what happens? I say a lot of negative things and it has to be transformed into something else. So what is going to happen? Something negative is going to show up. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if you say all the time, I'm a director, what's going to happen is you're going to get circumstances, people, and events into your life that are going to help you to get you to director.
Oh, that's so interesting, bro, that you tell me this. You know why?
Tell me.
Like, I think 1 week ago or something, someone at the office that just started the business. So don't get me wrong.
Okay.
We know there are levels, of course.
Okay.
So that person just started the business, and that person told me, or asked me about my story, right? And I told my story, blah, blah. But she said like, but what if it's not working out? What if it would not work out for you, this business? And I looked her in the eyes, and there was not one cell in my whole body that tried to convince me, yeah, maybe it's not possible. You get my point? But it's crazy to realize where we all come from, because, bro, that's also, I think, self-talk, because you say, I'm a director. Circumstances will happen that will create your director. It only takes time.
Yeah.
Maybe we're going to talk about that, of course, later on.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like literally, there's a zero cell in my whole body that tells me, no, I won't make it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you experience that, but
that's in the beginning, obviously we both had it, right?
yeah, facts.
But now I got a click moment. I was like, okay, why do we always then say you have to be delusional? Because let's be honest, no one has ever been delusional by just thinking about being delusional. People have only been delusional about talking about their stuff where they were delusional about. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Because and maybe people had also like an internal conversation, which I'm going to talk about later. But in the end of the day, Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Arnold says it can be done. You know what I mean? Is self-talk. When people said it can be done, it can be done. And he told himself, I will beat Reg Spark one day. I will become like Reg Spark. And then it's so interesting because once again, it's free. Self-talk is free. It doesn't cost a single penny. And it also doesn't cost that much energy in the end of the day.
But why aren't maybe you're gonna talk over that later, but why are people not simply doing it then the right way?
Yeah, because most people, the whole world programs us to stay unaware. Sugar, alcohol, fast food, body, dopamine, all those things. So if you're not aware of it, you don't even know you have a conversation. We have 60,000 thoughts a day. How many people are really aware of those 60,000 thoughts?
Yeah, not a lot.
You get it? And 90% of those thoughts or of those conversations you're having come from the day before, and they're just created when you were young or when you had an emotional circumstance. So I would say that's why they keep people, and that's why we're doing these podcasts, obviously, that's why they keep people unaware. You get what I mean? That's why they try to make people illiterate, for example, so that they can't read anymore, which our big friend is also talking about a lot of times, right? So it's very interesting to get that question from you, because, you know, if people were all aware of that they could use self-talk, and everybody would talk positively to themselves, or in a way that they can talk positively about money, everybody would change their life.
Yeah.
Bro, it doesn't matter if you're from Africa, if you're from Russia, if you're from USA, doesn't matter your circumstance, it has to change because it just works like that. It's just a fact that whatever is in your subconscious mind has to become reality in your physical world, right? So to go to the second level of self-talk is where we say, this is where we have the recognition, and we are aware that we need to change. So this is a lot of times where people say, I should go more to the gym. You ever had this where people say, I should go more to the gym? Or they say, you're in a coach and they're like, you know what, Michiel? I really should read more books. You're right. You know what I mean? Now, a lot of people
prospect more.
Yes, a lot of people think that this is good self-talk, but this is actually still not a self-talk that serves you. Why? Because you're saying, I should read more books, but subconsciously your mind says, but you're not doing it. Does that make sense? I'm not doing it. So until you actually start going to the third level, nothing's really going to change. So a lot of people say like, hey, I want to change and I need to change, but you need to tell it to yourself in a good way. So very important with self-talk is when it comes out to self-talk, I'm going to give an analogy now, is it needs exactly a different phrase. It needs the exact directions. Your brain is asking you, give me the exact direction of where you want your thoughts, feelings, attitudes to go towards, right? So if you're telling yourself, oh, I should read more books, yeah, what are you actually telling yourself? I should do, but you're not doing it. Does that make sense? So to give an example to that, a lot of people is what we call, they have their mental apartment. So your apartment is like where all your beliefs are stored. So let's say a couch is one belief, a fridge, whatever. A lot of people are like, okay, no, I want to change my life. After this podcast, they're like, you know, I should change my self-talk, my beliefs. So they try to remove all their beliefs, put it into like the attic, for example, or in the basement. But once they start walking back into their apartment, all the furniture is back there. And there's like, how is this possible? You know what I mean? So they keep sometimes trying to put negative beliefs away or try to say, hey, I should change. But because they are not replacing the furniture, they should replace it. There's still some furniture comes back, but because there always needs to be furniture into your mental apartment. Does that make sense? So therefore, it's also important that you go to the third level, right? So the third level is what we call the decision to change, right? So this, I have a very good example for this. It was very interesting, right? So let's say, for example, a lot of people struggle with smoking cigarettes. A lot of people have this, right? So let's say, for example, let's say we're here in a cigar bar, okay? And you're just like smoking a cigar, for example, and I sit here and I take up a cigarette, I light it, but before I do that, I say, I don't longer smoke. And then I light up the cigarette and I start smoking a cigarette. What would you think about me?
Bro, I would think, are you the Lulu?
Yeah, are you the Lulu?
Perfect example, right? Go to the doctor or something.
Yeah. So I keep smoking. You're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, no, trust me, don't worry. It's self-talk. You'll be like, what do you mean self-talk? Okay, next time I come in here again, hey, Michiel, I don't smoke. And I stood up. Like people around you will be like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
But like what I say, you can change by what? Repetition and emotional impact. So the repetition, you keep telling yourself over and over and over again. And one day I sit there and I tell you, I don't smoke anymore. I no longer smoke. And then your brain has the exact direction where it tells now your body, gives a signal to your body, I don't smoke anymore. Does it make sense? That's where you change it. So that's where you really make the decision to change, right? Like I no longer do, or where you say, I'm going to become a director. You know what I mean? Or I no longer procrastinate. Or you say, I no longer lack discipline. Or I no longer talk negatively to myself. If you tell yourself long enough, one day your brain is going to say accept. So it's like, right, we go back to like the first thing I said, it's like this little ball, right? But this little ball has like a little thing over it, right? So obviously our subconscious mind is like above it, right? And the longer you say something, the more it's trying to press down onto that surface. And one day it will press through it and boom, it will drop into your subconscious mind. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And that's how you actually change a lot of things. So a lot of people that, for example, say, I am broke, you can tell yourself, I am no longer broke. I'm no longer making only 2K a month, because then your whole body is going to change out of that. Does that make sense?
And what do you think about the following? Because of course we talked about environment and we talked about how environment could make it much easier, right?
Yeah.
When you say like, oh, for example, or when I say to you, oh, look, this bill is kind of big, in Dubai, then you would tell me abundance, bro.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you make me aware again.
Yeah.
But there's of course, that's the positive side about the environment, the downside of it. So you talked about, hey, this, like the third level, of course, how you should talk to yourself. However, what do you think of people that are trying to do it? And you can try something, you get my point, but doesn't matter for now. But they are trying to change their words to the third level at least, while other people are telling them then, hey, you're crazy. When you, for example, maybe you are someone that really wants to make it happen in life, and I'm someone that just want to have a regular 9-to-5 job and just want to go on a vacation once a year. And you're talking like, hey, I am rich. I have opportunities. Opportunities come all the opportunities come into my way. And I would tell you, bro, you're crazy. You're delulu. You have to go to a doctor. How should people handle that? Or are you going to go over that later on?
No, it's a good question. I mean, because that's where, you see that other people's programmings are trying to like keep you away from growing yourself. You know what I mean? The first thing I would say is I was doing this training a few days ago and I talked about a quote, like think much bigger, much sooner, right? And I also said like, hey, you need to be delusional because the only people that you know and you know their names were delusional, right? They thought something was possible that other people wouldn't think was possible.
True.
Some people would say like Niels, when he was talking about, hey, we're going to set up a podcast room, some people would say he was delusional. It's not possible because back then we didn't have the money to create it, for example, right? Yeah. But just because he believed in something, he kept telling it to us and kept telling it to himself. His programming created his disc and his disc showed us out of reality. So I would say the number one thing is it's good that people will tell you that you're delusional, because otherwise it means that you're not doing your self-talk or talking about what you want enough and you're not thinking big enough. The only way to measure if you're thinking big enough is to see if somebody else tries to either bring you down or tell you that you're thinking too big or that you're talking about delusional stuff. You need to keep both feet on the ground. But therefore, what they should do is most people then stick in that environment and keep being with those people. So therefore, like we have an office. Most people in FTP, they spend more time with their old friends that have this negative self-talk, or when they themselves have good self-talk, talk them down. But here at the office, no one that is successful will ever tell you that it's weird that you're reading books. That is weird that you're dreaming big. Not a single bodybuilder will tell a person that goes to the gym and that is really skinny, hey, what you're doing is wrong. Because they were one day also skinny pretty much, right? So I learned from myself, like, hey, you become the 5 people you spend your time with, right? You become like them. Why? Because you start talking the same way like them. You know what I mean? You start becoming programmed the same way like them. And that's how you can change your whole life, I would say. By going to the office, being at the events, like being on every single call, because that's where all the time your 5 senses are triggered, yeah.
So you are saying, in other words, that when people are calling you delulu, or you're dreaming too big, or you're living in a fantasy, that you're probably on the right track.
Yes.
That's what you say.
That's a good way to indicate it. For example, we were sitting together at the Burj Khalifa, right?
Yeah.
And we were looking at the building from Jacob & Co., right? With the crazy watches, right?
Yeah.
And you said to me, hey, just imagine one day an FTP building. You know what I mean?
True.
And obviously the person that says it's possible or the person that says it's not possible is both cases right. Because, in the end of the day, that's how the world works. We are human beings that are here to create. Like just imagine, like same thing with Dubai. There was one person that says, I'm going to make it the number one, and he's making it the number one. That makes sense? But yeah, it's definitely an indicator, right? So once again, what's very important, like you all said, because I heard you said it as well, is don't try to use self-talk. Use self-talk. Like don't say, like, when you tell your friends, like, hey, I'm no longer smoking anymore, or I'm no longer broke anymore. That's a different energy. Then you're like, hey, I'm no longer broke anymore, or I'm no longer smoking anymore. It's such a different example. The same example, but such a different energy behind it. You know what I mean? So when you're using self-talk, be confident about what you're saying, right? And you don't have to, like, I learned this one phrase is you don't have to believe it or understand it before you do it. You have to do it and you will understand and believe it. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Because for me, I told myself so many times, I'm worthy. And every single time my brain was saying, I'm not worthy. That's my old self. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's also like the last level I wanted to say is the better you, which is level 4 of self-talk. This is where you say, I am a director. I am successful. I am so happy and grateful now that I am making this and this and this amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the way you give your brain exactly the right directions and the phrases on how you want to think. So you can tell your first self, for example, I'm so happy and grateful now that I'm a person that wakes up every single day in the morning with high energy and is excited for the rest of the day because I know I'm going to kill it and opportunities come my way. What's going to happen is obviously because you tell yourself that all the time. Like that's just, again, how that ball works. Whatever is in there is your belief. So it's going to create how you feel. It's going to create how you think. It's going to create what your attitude is like. And let's be honest. A perfect example is momentum.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in momentum, you know, you feel good, your attitude is good, your thinking is right, your actions are right. Why?
Yeah.
Is because, you know, in that moment, your 5 senses also see that everything is going right?
Mm-hmm.
So that programs for your brain also like, hey, to see like, hey, things are going right, so I should feel good. I see results. Does that make sense? I hear people being excited. I see people, we don't obviously taste people being excited, all that kind of stuff, but we don't feel them, but we feel still the momentum, you know what I mean? So very important, level 1 and level 2, you need to unlearn that, right? And I think, you know, obviously at a few calls ago, I think Barjan said it really good. He said, you know, a lot of people want to learn, but you should unlearn first, right? But then you have to relearn level 3 and level 4, right? Saying, I am not doing this anymore. I am not doing that. And then also saying like, for example, bro, I said so many times, I am driving a Mercedes A-Class. You know what I mean? I was telling myself so times, I am so happy and grateful now that I'm making this and this amount of money. And one day that just also became my reality. Does that make sense? And obviously in all of that takes a lot of time. But once again, everything takes time. You know what I mean? You go to the gym, you don't go do a few bicep exercises and you have a big bicep. So just know one thing is self-talk is a muscle. Self-talk really is a muscle that you train every single day. And you don't do that obviously for hours a day, but you do it every single day in the right moments. In the right moments where you need to make the right decision, where you need to have the right self-talk, right? Because for me personally, you know, when it comes down to my depression, that's where everything changed because I was telling myself I was depressed actually. I was really like, and all the time I was feeling it or I was thinking about it. But then when you become aware of that, you know, obviously, you know, we can go into it another moment, like the book Outwitting the Devil. I didn't read it, but I like studied a little bit. Like obviously, we can't go into that too much, but your ego, or some people say the devil, also tries to put lies into you, self-talk. And we think it's our own self-talk. We think it's the things we're telling ourselves, right? So when something is telling yourself like, hey, I'm not good enough, people think, oh, that's my own thoughts. You know what I mean? But once again, self-talk is not a thought or is not a feeling. Self-talk is an action. And God gave us free actions and free will, not free thoughts and free feelings, as Niels always says. You know what I mean? So I would say with that perspective, now we understand, right, what the levels are of self-talk. But now a lot of people obviously ask also like, hey, how can I be able to change it, right? So put in the actions. Because for yourself, would you say it's very relatable for you that you had a lot of moments where you told yourself, I am this, I earned this, and then it became your reality?
Yeah, bro. Facts.
Give an example. Can you give an example? I'm very curious.
For example, I am living abundant. You know, I am abundant. And the moment I really started to believe and I was really convicted with a high conviction. Yeah. Bro, that was a moment I felt like it. I had like it. I got opportunities like it. Everyone around me was also feeling the same. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. It really works, you know? Last time in Dubai, I said I'm going to make an X amount of income this week. And I literally said to Niels, I don't know how, but how doesn't matter because my why is clear. I will make it done. It's already done. You know, like, and then I'm going to be honest, for now yet, I didn't make that goal, that certain income in that week, but I hit it in certain income that I never hit it before in 1 week.
Crazy.
That's crazy, bro. So it really works, man.
It's so funny because we were like, you were talking about your stuff and I said, yeah, I felt different. I was like, okay, I was still in my mind thinking programming, beliefs, attitude. It's like, okay, wait, the word attitude, I know this word. Because when the attitude is right, the
facts
don't count. I was like, okay, that's interesting. But if you think about it then, when, the attitude is right, the facts don't count. But when the programming is right, nothing actually really counts. If you think about it.
True.
Because once again, whatever is ruin your program will show up. Like the light bulb was into the programming of Thomas Edison. He believed in it. Therefore, he had the attitude. Therefore, he had the feeling, the actions, and therefore it became his reality. Same thing with Roger Bannister, right? The guy that ran the 1 minute mile. Perfect example, right? But yeah, to go back.
4 minute mile. You mean
the
that
4
one?
minute mile.
4 minute mile, right? That he ran 4 minutes in 1 mile, and that was never done before.
Yeah, it was like people, like doctors said it's impossible to do it. You know, like everybody said it's impossible. Once again, the man that says who can and the man that says he can is both right. And then after that, there was college athletes, like being like 21, 22 years old, that also did it after him even faster.
Crazy.
So everybody says something is not possible until it's done.
Ooh, that's for all the people. Write that one down. Damn.
I don't know who said that. I saw it a few weeks ago. Like, it's true, you know, everybody says you're crazy, but once you do it, you're actually a genius. You know? But yeah, that's what we're doing also, right? So just imagine, like, also in the future, and this will happen, we will have more podcasts like these rooms, but all over the world. Okay, nice. All right, so I'm going to give 5 methods on how you can do the self-talk. So what to do, right? So the first thing is what we have is a silent self-talk. So that's like the inner sentences you tell yourself. So that's where a lot of people also, this one costs less work or less effort than it costs awareness. It costs more awareness because that those silent, like not conversation, but like things you're telling yourself in any decisions is really what counts the most. And small little actions lead to big spiritual breakthroughs. Does it make sense? So for example, if someone goes on stage and they have to talk at an FTP event, if they tell themselves like subconsciously, like, I am going to crush it, right? So like the fourth level, I am going to crush it, but just signing to themselves, that's what creates their attitude and their feelings and everything, right? But if they're silently telling themselves, I will not crush it, obviously, you know, it's not that they won't crush it, but obviously you will get this feeling. They will stutter maybe, those kinds of things. So to change this is to obviously become aware of the small things you're telling yourself every single day. Once again, writing it out. Luke, why shouldn't you keep it in your mind? Because it's very hard to have overview in your own mind while you're trying to talk to yourself. So once you see it in front of you, it's easier to talk about it or easy to see what you're actually talking about. Does that make sense? I remember I did this once. My mentor told me, it's like, hey, at a hard situation, it's like, okay, write down everything. So I wrote down, it's like, hey, I am in a bad situation. I am blah, blah, blah. And then he told me, he's like, you know, make sure to, like go with your pen through everything, like erase everything that is not your current reality. And I had to erase everything. I had to erase everything because I told myself this, like Joe Dispenza said, 50% of the story we tell ourselves is not even true. It's not even reality. And it's mostly like the little silence things that come up. But our brain, once again, doesn't know the difference between reality and a thought. It thinks it's reality. You know what I mean? So then we have the second one is what we call self-talk, right? And this is where self-speak. This is where you're speaking it out loud to yourself. So I don't know if you ever did this, but I did this many times before I went to the States. I was like, okay, these people need me. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to crush completely. I'm going to make sure that they get the nuggets that they need. And what's going to happen, they also, like when I was on stage, that exactly happened that way. But this is also important because self-speak is not just only what you talk about to yourself, like out loud. It's also what you say to others. Does that make sense? Okay. And why is this also very important is because, you know, other people also keep you accountable to what you say a lot of times. Like very much accountable. You know what I mean? But when you say something, you will actually be able to hear it as well. Don't forget, if you have silent self-talk, you don't hear it. You just understand it in your brain. That's a big difference. Does that make sense?
Yes.
The third one is self-conversation. This is actually where you just really like just talk with yourself. Hey, are you doing? For example, I have a perfect example. I was reading this book, Love Phobia, right? And it's a really great book, but it's like very confronting, right? Yeah. And I was reading the book and I was getting a little bit emotional. So I was telling myself, I literally had a conversation with myself. Hey, Luke, so are you feeling emotional, right? Yeah. Is this nice? No, totally not right, right? I was like, okay, but Can we have these emotions? Yeah, we can have these emotions because that's how we heal. Okay. So what should we do? Okay. We should just sit and not judge them. Okay, let's not judge our emotions. And it's so funny because a lot of times we think we need to talk with other people, but talking with yourself is so important because you're with yourself the whole time. You're literally with yourself all the time and having the conversation all the time in words. But when you speak it out, you become more aware of what you're actually saying. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then we have the fourth one, which I like a lot. This is self-right, right? Therefore, also, like we say a lot of times, you can tell yourself, I'm so grateful now that I am a director. But when you write it down, and our big friend always talks about that as well, writing down actually creates that you're also seeing what you're writing down. And you can never write something down without having internal self-talk.
Mm-hmm.
Because you write down, I am so grateful, but in your subconscious mind, you're like, I am so grateful. Does it make sense?
True.
And then what happens as well, now you can see it. So another 5 senses triggered. You can audibly speak it out loud again, which whatever you want. But also because you're writing it down, your arms, so your muscles are also giving a direct connection or like a signal to your brain as well to help you, right? And the last one, I like this one a lot, right? So and this is the last thing we could talk about because there's so much to talk about with self-talk and it's such an amazing topic. It changed my life completely. It's the tape talk. And I was like, the first time I heard this, I was like, because my mentor told me in 2021, I actually did it, but I just, I didn't like listen to it many times because I don't know about you, but I don't really like my own voice. Or no, that's self-talk. I do like my own like voice, you know what I mean? But I had it in the past and I didn't like it. Let's say it like this, right?
Yeah.
So I am a person that lost my own voice. So what happened is he told me, hey, you have to speak into like the recorder, your goals. And as you already have it. So I was saying like, I am Luke Brands and I am a director making 10K a month, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't understand why that was important, right? But let me give you an example. So there was this couple and this couple had a lot of trouble with like personal development for themselves, but mainly in their relationship on how they were connected with each other, how they were treating each other. So there was this recording that the woman recorded where she was saying, my relationship is going very good. We are very good at communicating with each other and we are solving problems together and many other things. So what she would do in the morning, because it's very simple. This takes zero work because you can also reprogram yourself subconsciously. Right? You ever had this when you're like sitting in the car, there's this Latino song coming on and then a few weeks later you hear it so much times on on Spotify and you're like singing the song but you don't know the lyrics actually. You ever had this?
Like, mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Mami lo siento. Anyway. So, and then why is that so? Is because subconsciously, your subconscious mind can never reject something. It always has to accept everything that is being said to it. So when you hear yourself saying that, the wife was brushing her teeth in the morning. So she was brushing her teeth, or when she was cooking, she was listening to it. And her husband was like, annoying, you know what I mean? But in both their relationships, for both of them, everything changed. Why? Because even though the husband didn't like to listen to it, he still was hearing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it still changed up to his own programming as well.
Bro, are you telling me now that we're going to have a lot of toxic things in FTP where people are having a relationship? So the relationship is not going like how they want it yet. And that, for example, the girlfriend is, when he sleeps, she's putting her phone next to his head. Yeah. You are in love with me.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that this will happen now?
My love language, and you give me gifts every single day. Yeah. No, but I mean, truly, it is really important because you can use it once again in every single area of your life.
True.
But therefore, still, you need to know what you want.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know what, like your brain is asking you, tell me exactly how to think. Tell me exactly what signal to give to your own body. And truly, when you start using this and applying this, it can change so much. But once again, it needs time. Most of the time, it needs a consistent 90 days.
Okay.
A consistent 90 days. Consistently for 90 days. For example, I started this, but I didn't finish it, so that's my problem. I was a multi-billionaire, and he said, write down for 70 days, 70 times, 70 days, 70 times what your goal is financially. Bro, first day I'm writing it 70 times. Took me like 1.5 hours, like never mind, right? But he said because, we have in our brain, we have neural connections, right? So neural patterns,
yes,
which is our beliefs, our ways of thinking. So whenever we have a certain situation, we go through that pattern and that sends a signal to our body. To change that, it needs most of the time like 90 days. You know what I mean? But a lot of people, once again, they want the short-term results, right? People want microwave results instead of cooking for something. And that's like a thing we should change because, once again, the man who keeps telling himself that he can and the man who keeps telling himself that he can't are both in both cases right. And that therefore, like when you use this tool, it's just really a weapon you can use. But mainly, for example, the self-talk tape, it's so easy. You know what I mean? But most people just don't maybe use it. And what you don't use,
you lose.
You lose. Yes.
Okay, so let's conclude it. So the listeners really, and the viewers, of course, they really understand what the value was that you have given to them. So let's say someone in FTP wants to reach in 90 days the 1% Club Bronze with trading, the 1% Club Bronze with UGC. They want to hit Platinum in 90 days. What should they do with the self-talk that you were explaining right now? What do they start with right now?
Yeah.
And how does it look the whole 90 days period?
Yeah. So right now, they first need to become aware of level 1 and 2, which was obviously the negative self-talk and where they're telling themselves that they should do things. To write that completely out and change it by either talking to yourself, talking with other people, making a tape about it, or writing it out, how they want to talk, okay? So they make the list of how they're talking, which they don't want. And then obviously, like I said, with the mental partner, is they have to not just remove it, but make sure to, I'm trying to find the right word, replace it, right? So need to replace it. So let's say someone has this mental self-talk of, hey, I can't be a platinum, for example, or I can't be a silver, right? Then they should write down next to it, for example, I am a silver. Or they should tell themselves, I am a silver. Or they should tell someone else, I am a silver. Or talk to themselves, hey, can we become a silver? Yes. Did other people do it? Yes, 100% possible, right? And then what they need to do is obviously you use the level 3 and 4, so to relearn it. And also they can use it with the self-talk, with the self-talk tape. They can do it with conversations and just do that every single day in the morning and before they go to sleep.
Okay.
Every day before the morning and before they go to sleep. And that's the 30 minutes after you wake up and that's the 30 minutes before you go to sleep. That's where you change your whole subconscious mind because that's where your subconscious mind is open the most.
That's so true, bro. Literally, when I'm gonna give an example. So to yesterday, so in Dubai, of course, we went a couple of times to the gym, and I made a commitment with myself that the next 90 days, the next 30 days, I'm gonna give it my all in training. I'm gonna give it my all in eating the right way, healthy, all that stuff. And yesterday, I was programming myself before I went to sleep. I'll go to the gym in the morning. I'll go to the gym in the morning. I'll go to the gym in the morning. I am already in the gym. I'm already in the gym. I was so focused on, there's no way that I won't be in the gym the morning after, So last morning.
Yeah.
No way. This morning, bro, I was energetic. Normally, I was not a morning person. That's self-talk, fam. But I talked that to myself. I really believed in that. I'm not really a morning person, And because I really believed in it and I kept saying it, for me, it was almost, it felt like something impossible to be in the gym really early in the morning. And that it's more impossible to be in the gym really early in the morning than building up really big businesses. That's crazy to me.
True.
Because it was the self-talk. So yesterday, I'll crushed in the gym, PRs, all that stuff. This morning I was there. I felt so energetic. I'm so happy right now that I went to the gym, And this is something I have to keep doing indeed before I sleep and the moment I wake up, right? What you explained to everybody. And then last but not least, because probably we're gonna have a lot of conversations still about the self-talk in the podcast. But what if people, that just joined FTP, what if they are still in the belief of this is like hocus pocus? Because let's be honest, when you look to the media, when you go to a lot of our parents or our grandmother or grandfather or our uncles and aunts, maybe big sisters or big brothers, they will always tell you like, that's like hocus pocus. Do you really think that you can become successful by talking to yourself like positively? Hey, act normal, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe people are still really living in a belief system, but joined FTP. They want to achieve big goals, but they really believe, no, it's hocus pocus. What would you tell them to change their mind completely right now, to end it off?
That's a good question. I would say it's really just to really do the self-talk without believing in it first, without really understanding it. Because if you do it regardless, it will have its effect. It's just how it works, you know what I mean? If you keep typing new codes into a disk of a computer, there will show up new things into the screen at the end of the day. But something that can help people is don't talk about big things. Don't talk about big dreams and a big vision to small-minded people. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because they will never have that problem if they have conversation with us. If they come to the events, if they come to every single incentive, if they come to the office, they will never have that problem. You know what I mean? Or if they're, for example, for the Scandinavian team or German team, if they're online at the office, because everybody will talk there very positively, right? But if people say it, right, once again, they have to use that people are telling themselves like, hey, you're the Lulu or it can be done, as an indicator of knowing that they then should tell themselves, if they said it can be done, it can be done. Because when you buy people's opinions, you buy their lifestyle.
True.
When you buy their programming, you buy their own reality.
And do you think it's even possible? So people join. They want to become financially free with trading. They want to become the biggest UGC influencer out there. They want to become a freaking director. Will it ever be possible to achieve those goals by not mastering the self-talk? What would you say about that?
I would say, I mean, you can go into action, and action, you know, because a lot of times, you know, I think it was John C. Maxwell said it. He said most of the emotional baggage we carry and the story we tell ourselves is not reality at all. Action will tell you if your thinking was right or not, or aka if your self-talk was right or not. So action will still kill a lot. It will kill a lot of things, right?
Okay.
Because if people just keep doing it over and over and over again, with, for example, prospecting, they will find ways. But a lot of people keep prospecting, or they keep sending out, for example, things for UGC, or for example, they keep doing home events, but nobody's joining because still their programming is not there, right? So in my belief, you need self-talk. Without self-talk, it's impossible to really get to the highest level of your own potential, right? And once the thing is, nothing changes for months of self-talk, but one day where you realize it, after that is going to compound even more, because then you know you can use it in any area that you can. So yeah, people need to use this and master this to become really the best version of themselves and actually get to the highest level, yes.
Amazing. I want to thank you, Luke, for your expertise, for everything you explained, every single one. I had a lot out of it, and I will definitely become much more aware again of the words I'm telling myself. And make sure, fam, that you really implement the information that Luke just gave every single one of us. Because if there's one person that actually know what he's talking about, it's definitely Luke. So thank you guys for listening. I can't wait to see you on the next episode. And let's have a great one. Ciao, ciao.